My name's Norm McCourt, your host of City Limits, the show that provides you with information about the people, places, and events that shape the character of our community. Tonight, it's my pleasure to welcome Ron McMullen. He's president of Christian Hospitals.
Well, thank
Correct?
you, Norm. Glad to be here.
Yeah, glad to have you. A Christian hospital is kind of an institution in North County, at least the part of North County I live in, because it's right there, Berkeley and Florissant, and Blackjack. So hey, you're right, the closest hospital to us. And then of course we have East now. So
right, we have two campuses, and I came to Christian in 2007. So predating me a couple of years, in 2004, I believe, the Northwest campus, which is in Florissant, that campus underwent a big change. There had been inpatient beds there. That older hospital, which was built in the early 60s, was taken to the ground, but replaced immediately with a comprehensive outpatient test and treatment center, a fully licensed emergency department, and it's been thriving ever since. It's probably the fastest growing outpatient center in the BJC health system. The Northeast campus, which has since become the main campus, is where all the inpatient beds are, and probably the signature feature there as you're driving either on 270 or 367 is that 11-story tower. Kind of juts right up there on the intersection.
it's kind of a marker point there.
Hard to miss. Yeah. Hard to miss.
Well, whenever I think of Christian Hospital, I think of the campus on Graham Road, because both of my sons were born in that hospital. So yeah, I have a affinity for that. I really
I've heard that from many
like
people,
that.
And my wife is a nurse now, retired, but many years ago she actually worked in that hospital in various capacities. So I hear a lot of, even though I never worked in that hospital, I get a lot of anecdotes from my wife. So.
Well, you were actually across the river. I think you had told me one time you had worked in Alton. That's
correct.
Kind of where you
I
started.
was still working for BJC Health System, but I was working at Alton Memorial Hospital, which my joke was when I came to Christian that they built a highway for me, because about the time I moved, 367 was under construction. So when I first went to Christian, it took me about an hour to get to work because I live in Godfrey, Illinois. About 3 or 4 months after I got the job, the highway was finished and it opened, and my commute went from 60 minutes to about 25, 26 minutes. So that's always been my joke, is they built me a highway.
Well, I can make a joke about that and say, well, maybe they just wanted to get you out of there. But I know some people that live in Alton and in that area, and are actually ecstatic about what you did for that hospital over there. What the improvements you made and how much better it was, and so on. So I think they were very sorry to see you leave.
Oh, well, I appreciate that. I appreciate that.
So when you came over here, and I knew you were here, some of my friends had mentioned that hey, you get a good administrator over here.
Well, I appreciate that.
And that's,
I try.
I can. You can look at the campus over there on Graham Road, and you can see the changes that have been made. I just attended a opening.
Well, I
weeks
came,
ago,
as I said, that campus predated me, but that campus was turned into an outpatient campus in the 2003-2004 timeframe, but it rapidly grew. So by the time I came to Christian in 2007, it was apparent that the Northwest campus had outgrown itself really in just about 3 years. So we started planning a project, and just about on day one I got to Christian. And that project went into construction in 2009 and opened in 2010. What that project did, first of all, it doubled the size of the emergency department there. So the emergency department, I think, had 10 or 12 patient care spaces, and today has about 25. The other thing it did is it added, on that south side of Graham Road, it added an attached medical office building, because we had a number of physicians who really wanted to be at that location. They were already in the community perhaps, or in adjoining communities, but they were in onesie twosie's office, kind of spread throughout the communities. They wanted to be at that site for the convenience of themselves and their patients. So we put on an attached 2-story medical office building, and today that office building is almost full. I think there may be one available small office, So I suppose if there's a physician out there, we got one office left.
There you go. Yeah, that's kind of become the trend the last few years. It used to be there was a hospital and your doctor could be miles away, but now it's pretty much centrally located, and your doctors are usually, real close to the hospital, so you can go back and forth if you need to or whatever. It's kind of a
That's correct. I think there are advantages to the physicians. There are certainly advantages to their patients to be located adjacent to a hospital. So, if your physician hands, as you're leaving the office, if you get a script for an x-ray or for a lab test or something, instead of having to call somewhere and make an appointment, in many cases you walk down the hall and you can get that x-ray done immediately or get the lab test drawn, and it's just very convenient. The advantage for both the patient and the physician is then the results can get back to the physician very, very quickly, and they can make whatever determination they need to make about your health status and get back to you with a plan of care.
Mm-hmm. That's the other thing that I noticed when we went on that tour is there's a lot of electronic gadgets now where, the stuff is, I guess, automatically updated to databases, instantly available. So if you go to one doctor and he says, hey, you should see another doctor or whatever, a specialist for something, he's got that information just by logging on. Is that correct?
Right. Within the BJC health system of which we're a part, actually there's what we call a central data repository for patient information. And it's a fancy phrase, but essentially what it means is after a hospital discharge or after an office visit, within about 48 hours, all that information is uploaded to. So if you were the patient, or if I was the patient, all of our data is accessible from one location, and a physician who is appropriately credentialed and privileged and has rights to view that information, really from anywhere, in some cases including their home, can log on with an appropriate secure logon, because we don't want to have the kind of data breaches with health information that we've seen in some of the commercial industries. But they can log on with an appropriately secure logon, view that information, and make decisions about your health. And what we're moving towards is a situation where, again, if I was the patient or you were the patient, you can also log on through a secure portal, and you can view lab results or x-ray reports or those kinds of things. I actually have an account like that, and I like it. I like being able to go on and read the information that I know my doctor is reading, although I readily admit I probably understand about half of it. So.
Yeah, well, hey, we got to admit, computers and, monitor tubes and so on are better than looking at handwriting, because doctors can't write very well in most cases.
Well, and one of the there's a lot of controversy around electronic medical records, and you'll hear some physicians say that they think that they don't like them, mainly because, frankly, one thing they have done, especially for I would say older physicians who are I hate to say this, Norm, but probably in our age group and are less computer savvy. I know I'm less computer savvy. I'm sure you're very computer savvy, but some of those older physicians, it slows them down because they haven't grown up with computers. But with the younger physicians that are coming out of training programs, they've never practiced medicine without a computer. So they're much faster, they're much more used to it. So I think what we're going to see as older physicians retire, the inevitable, and as younger physicians come in and replace them, we're going to see the speed of adoption of electronic records, I think, go up tremendously, and the types of things that those electronic records can do for us, I think, will also increase, because physicians are very smart people and they're going to figure out things that they want those computers to do. And if they want it to do something, they'll find somebody to get it done.
Yeah, I'm sure as technology goes forward and as the medical profession, I guess, blossoms more, because it's constantly expanding, that they will adopt it for sure. And the big advantage to the patient is you have all the information. If my doctor happens to be out of town, or something happens to my doctor and I have to go see another doctor, that doctor has the information available to him to see what my previous doctor said, what he thought, what I needed, and my medications. And, the medications is a big part of this.
Right.
If you don't
Absolutely.
know.
Yeah, so not only can you see that, but your physician can see it. And literally, for physicians who want to be connected, I mean, we all have our smartphones. But I was just talking to a physician the day before yesterday, and actually I'll say he's our chief of staff, Doug Zweig, who's a pulmonologist. But Doug is one of those physicians very dedicated to his patients. So he was actually on vacation. And I want to say he told me he was like off the coast of Brazil or something within the last year. But it was somewhere that I've never been, I'll put it that way. But he actually, through a smartphone connection, logged on, and because he wanted to check something about one of his patients, and he was able to log on from somewhere off the coast of Brazil, check something, and communicate with a nurse or someone and make an appropriate adjustment to a patient's medication or whatever needed to be done. Of course, I was thinking, boy, I don't know if I'd do that if I was on vacation in Brazil, but Dr. Zweig did. And so it's a testament to his dedication, but it's also a testament to the fact that we now have systems that allow physicians to do that.
Yeah. Well, the other thing too is if there's suddenly an interaction, they see two medicines interact with each other, you didn't know it before, that can be updated in the database, and that would be readily available to the physician when they look at your medications and whatever.
Well, not only is it available, but computer systems themselves are getting smarter, and what we're increasingly seeing is if a medication is ordered by a physician, and let's say another medication is ordered by another physician, so your primary care physician, your family physician, if you will, has you on a particular medication. But let's say you see another physician that he or she is referred to you to. If that physician orders a second medication, the smarter systems that are beginning to be developed will actually not let that physician or will tell that second physician, wait a minute, are you sure you want to order that medication? Because it may interact in some way, shape, or form with that first medication, and that may not be of benefit to the patient. So it will remind that physician to think about that again, and actually, again, as the systems get smarter, it will actually suggest alternative medications or alternative procedures to the physician that are what we call evidence-based. In other words, are backed up by science. Mm-hmm. Because what we're increasingly seeing is that no matter how smart the physician is, and they're very smart, medicine is changing so rapidly that physicians just cannot keep up with all the changes. And physicians, just like us, just probably increasingly, are going to have to rely on smart systems, computer systems, to keep them up to date with all the changes that are occurring in medicine.
Mm-hmm. Okay, now let's talk about a little bit about the campus over in Florissant, mm-hmm. and then let's talk about some of the other BJC locations in St. Louis area, because there's other locations other than here in North County. On the campus in Florissant, you recently have updated the emergency room and the procedures over there, how that works. Right. Can you kind of just give a little brief synopsis of what you did?
Well, the Florissant campus on Graham Road, the one I was talking about a minute ago, so we did double the size of that emergency department. And we just recently finished renovating the emergency department at our Northeast campus, which is in Spanish Lake. Mm-hmm. And that renovation project really just finished about 2 weeks ago. So we had the traditional grand opening and that sort of thing. That was about a $20 million project, and it took us from really being the oldest emergency department in the St. Louis area to being the newest ED department, certainly within BJC. More importantly, however, it took us from a situation in the Northeast campus where patients were being cared for in an older environment, and some of those patients were being cared for in renovated exam rooms or closets, and a few of those patients, frankly, were being cared for in hallways, not because we wanted them to, but because we had seen so much growth, we ran out of room. So we've expanded the size of that emergency department by about 40%. and use that increased square footage in the floor plate to add rooms. So today, in the Northeast Emergency Department, we have 38 patient care spaces, and every one of those patient care spaces is in effect a private room. If you put those two EDs together, the one at the Northeast campus and the one at the Florissant campus, we see about 116 to 118,000 emergency department visits per year. That makes us, and it's all under one hospital license, that makes us the busiest emergency department operation, not only in the St. Louis region, but frankly in the state of Missouri. And that surprises a lot of people, but we are the largest and the busiest emergency department operation.
You also recently won an award, didn't you? Weren't you named?
Well, we are also, our ambulance service, which is based at the Northeast campus, but has sub-bases throughout North County, including in some of the firehouses and some of the communities. Our ambulance service was recently named the 2014 EMS Service of the Year, and that's an award that you only get. It's the best kind of award. It's an award you're given by your peers. So ambulance companies, emergency service companies around the United States nominate and then have a process where they vote for the Service of the Year. And again, in 2014, our ambulance service won that. And it's a combination of very fast response times, some growth, but also in the case of our ambulance service, they started a program this year which is called the Advanced Paramedic Program. So we train our own emergency medical technicians and personnel now. We have what we call the EMT Academy. So we train our own folks, but we've given some of them special training and hundreds of hours of additional training. And now what they're able to do is if they get a dispatched call, and all the dispatches, by the way, come out of a central dispatch, which is located in St. Louis County in the government center in Clayton. If they get a dispatch call and it's someone they know, and they have a name for it, they call them, anecdotally, they call them frequent flyers. So let's say it was me, and they say, oh, that's Ron. And usually the dispatcher can give them something about the nature of the call. So Ron, in my case, because I'll just tell you I have asthma, and maybe it's, well, Ron's having a little trouble breathing. Well, they've seen me so often, they know it's probably because I forgot to use my inhaler or something. So they'll send out an advanced practice paramedic with the special training. When they get to my house, they'll fully assess me. And if I need to be transported back to the hospital emergency room, they'll do that. But what we've discovered is with a lot of these quote-unquote frequent flyers, that with these who are not truly emergency needs, so let's say it was me and I was having a little trouble breathing, because they knew me, the paramedic with the advanced training, after assessing me, would probably just reach in his bag. He would have the asthma medication I needed. He would actually give me a breathing treatment right there in my home, which obviously I would prefer, because everyone I talk to would much rather stay in their home. There aren't too many people I know that are just absolutely desirous of going to a hospital emergency room. So they would treat me in my home, so I would be happier. While they were treating me, they would give me instruction about the appropriate use of my asthma medication. So they would remind me about this, and maybe I did forget. Maybe I needed a reminder. And then what we've seen, and we've been doing this since our EMS crews have been doing this since about last February. What we've seen is, for a significant number of patients, a reduction in their use of the emergency room by about 40 to 50%. So I think the patients are happier about that. We're happier because, frankly, we don't have, we really want the emergency room, to the extent possible, to be preserved for people who truly, truly need it. Excuse me. So we don't have some of these lower acuity or non-emergency patients coming through so often. And frankly, it's less expensive. So whether that patient is paying for it themselves or whether they have insurance, or many times they have no insurance and in effect we're paying for it. But whoever is paying for it or not paying for it, providing the service to someone in their home is frankly much less expensive than providing the same service to them in the emergency department, because once somebody comes into the emergency department, we are legally obligated to provide a whole bunch of processing and triage services and other types of medical surveillance services to them, which they really may not need, but we're legally required to provide, and all that costs money. So.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, you know, it seems like it would make it for the people that are actually in the emergency room for emergencies also be a benefit to them in that they would be seen quicker. It seems like it would move the people through the emergency room much quicker.
And that is absolutely correct. We've seen we've improved we call that turnaround time. And I can't quote you the exact numbers. I can tell you in both EDs, both the one in Florissant and the one in Spanish Lake, we've cut our turnaround times for the average patient coming into the emergency department by about 2/3. So for patients who come into the emergency department, get treated, excuse me, and then get discharged from the emergency department to go back home or maybe go to a nursing home or something, again, about a 2/3 reduction in the time they spend in the emergency department. Excuse me. For the patient who comes into the emergency department and then is sick enough that they need to be admitted to the hospital, their time in the emergency department, on average, has been cut about in half. So it's had a real benefit.
That's a big effect. Mm-hmm. Great. Somebody asked me to ask you, what is the hybrid room?
Well, the hybrid room does not exist yet,
okay.
But it will. So we just recently finished, through our affiliated foundation, we just recently finished a successful fundraising campaign to raise money to help us build a hybrid room. And so if any of your viewers out there were contributors to that campaign, I want to thank you. We did have hundreds of people in the broader community who made contributions to that campaign, as well as many of our employees and many of our physicians. Our physicians, I think, because they recognize the technology will benefit their patients. Our employees, because I think they recognize the patient benefit, but they also want the hospital to stay up to date. And I think the community members donated because they want that technology in North County. And as near as we can tell, when this hybrid room opens, which is probably the middle of next year, we will be the only fully capable hybrid room in the North County area. So what will the hybrid room do? It will provide an operating environment where skilled heart surgeons and skilled cardiologists will be able to do procedures that today we cannot do at Christian Hospital. And today really can only be done, for instance, down at Barnes-Jewish at the Academic Medical Center in the research environment. But an example of those specialized procedures would be the replacement of a diseased valve. Today we do some valve replacements at Christian Hospital, but they tend to be only certain types of valve replacements, and they tend to be what the heart surgeons call big operations. So our very skilled heart surgeons will open up the chest, they'll go into the heart, they stop the heart, they cut out the diseased valve, they put in a new one. The procedure works, but the patient has to spend a long time in the hospital, and then when they go home, they have weeks and in some cases a couple of months in recovery. With the hybrid room, to do the same type of operation, they would be able to replace that valve really by introducing a catheter, usually into the groin, feed that catheter up into the heart, actually replace that valve with the catheter through the heart. No big incisions. Probably the incisions in the groin area would be 1 to 1.5 inches in length, and maybe 2 or 3 of those. But then once the operation was finished, the patient, instead of spending 6 to 8 days in the hospital, might spend 1.5 to 3. And then instead of spending 6 weeks to 2 months in recovery at home, they'll spend maybe 2 to 3 weeks. So tremendous benefit to the patient, less infection risk, better return to work if the person is working, if they're not working, if they're retired or whatever, quicker return to what we call activities of daily living. So it will have that benefit to the patient. It will also allow us to do operations that we simply don't do today at Christian. And it will allow us to take advantage of technologies that are probably 2 or 3 years away. So when those technologies mature and come out of research settings and are available to community hospitals like Christian, we'll have the technology in place to do those procedures. So again, most of these procedures are in the heart and areas around the heart. The other types of procedures would be what they call vascular procedures. So those would be procedures where something was diseased or something had failed in one of the big arteries or veins feeding into or out of the heart, or perhaps one of the big arteries or veins that run through the trunk of the body into the legs. So heart procedures and vascular procedures. But that room, that's about a $4.4 million expenditure. And again, as I said, we think we'll be the first fully capable hybrid room in the North County area.
Great. Okay, as we begin to wrap up, we've got about 2 minutes left here. What are some of the other locations where you have, emergency rooms and so on? I think in South County you have some.
Well, again, we're part of BJC Health System. So BJC has 12 hospitals. And in the St. Louis region, obviously, we have the 2 Christian sites. We have Barnes Jewish down in the Central West End. For kids, we have St. Louis Children's Hospital. And we do have, we have the Siteman Cancer Center. And what you're probably thinking of is Siteman Cancer Center just opened a large outpatient center. Right now, it's only outpatient in the South County area. And so they do everything outpatient related to cancer care. And that's probably the newest facility. We have 2 facilities in St. Charles County, Barnes Jewish St. Peter's and Progress West Healthcare Center. And then we have Barnes Jewish West County on Olive Street Road, probably about a half-mile west of 270. So those are, I don't think I missed one. Those are our major facilities in the St. Louis region. Oh, Missouri Baptist. How could I forget Missouri Baptist Hospital?
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, everybody should be, pretty close to a location where they can get to a hospital. Now, I ask every guest this question. What high school did you go to? It's kind of a St. Louis thing.
Oh, so I did grow up in St. Louis, and I went to Southwest High School in the city of St. Louis.
Great.
And which, as I understand it, the building still exists, but I don't think it's a high school anymore.
There you go. Mine got tore down too. I went to Berkeley and it's gone.
Right.
It's under an airport runway now, I think. As we wrap up here, as we finalize here, I'd like to thank you on behalf of the mayors and so on from North County. Your facility in BJC is very good on providing information to the mayors and to the community at large. I know you have it's probably pretty much monthly actually, meetings where you give an update of what's going on in a hospital, what BJC is doing. You have a doctor come in there and explain different procedures and so on. It's very beneficial to us elected officials to know some of those things. And I'd like to thank you for doing that. Very few places do that.
Well, thank you, and we're gonna keep doing it.
There you go. Well, hey, we'll be the best, most informed mayors in the area.
All right.
I'd like to thank you, Ron, for this
Thanks a lot.
interview. Really
Appreciate
appreciate it. And we're going to have to do this again. There's a lot of good information we got today that the residents can use, and they want to contact you. They can. We're going to put up a sign on the screen of how they can contact you, and they might ask for some more information.
Great. I'd welcome a phone call or an email.
Well, thank you. Thank you for watching our show this evening. If you have any questions for me, you can contact me at www.cityofblackjack.com, or you can call me at area code 314-355-0400, extension 100. Thank you. Good evening.